Welcome to Royal Secret. Imagine a queen, poised, radiant, beloved by an entire nation. Now picture that same queen, tears spilling down her cheeks, her composure shattered, in a moment so raw that it stunned even her closest advisors. This is the heart-wrenching story of Queen Mary of Denmark. A story of unimaginable pressure, of duty colliding with desire, of a love tested to its fragile core. It's the moment Queen Mary broke down over King Frederik, a moment that would forever change not just their marriage, but the very heartbeat of the Danish monarchy. Stay with us as we peel back the golden curtains of the palace to reveal a heartbreak so profound it nearly undid Denmark's most iconic royal couple. The year was recent enough that the memory still stings. Denmark's winter had settled over Copenhagen like a heavy wool blanket, cold, gray, relentless. But inside the gilded halls of Amalienborg Palace, another storm was brewing. The cameras showed a smiling faces, Queen Mary dazzling in Danish rubies, King Frederik offering his hand gallantly. To the public, they were the picture of regal unity. But behind the palace doors, courtiers whispered of tension, of late-night arguments echoing through marble halls, of a queen wrestling with fears she could scarcely admit even to herself. From the beginning, Mary Donaldson's love story seemed almost enchanted. The Australian advertising executive who caught the eye of the Danish crown prince at a Sydney pub. A modern Cinderella. The world fell in love with their love. Millions watched the 2004 wedding, as Mary, eyes brimming with tears of joy, promised her life to Frederik. The Danish people embraced her, this spirited, warm-hearted woman who seemed to breathe fresh life into their ancient monarchy. Over the years, they built a family that charmed Europe: Prince Christian, Princess Isabella, and the twins, Vincent and Josephine. The royal Christmas cards, the balcony waves, the laughter during sailing regattas, it all painted a portrait of a family living out the grandest of fairy tales. But real life, even royal life, is never so simple. Cracks beneath the crown. Royal insiders began to notice the signs long before the public did. King Frederik, burdened by expectations of a nation, often retreated into himself. He would disappear for long bike rides through the Danish countryside, needing air, space, something beyond protocol. Queen Mary, meanwhile, was left to shoulder countless engagements alone. Ever the consummate professional, she smiled, shook hands, delivered speeches, but behind palace walls, she worried. Close friends said Mary felt increasingly isolated. Despite being the queen, she was still an outsider in many ways. Australian by birth, speaking Danish with a careful precision that never quite matched her husband's easy fluency. The weight of representing Denmark, of being perfect always, grew heavier. The moment of heartbreak. Then came that unforgettable evening. The royal couple was scheduled to host an intimate diplomatic dinner at Fredensborg Palace. Nobility, ambassadors, and influential Danish figures gathered under glittering chandeliers, wine glasses clinking, laughter echoing. But upstairs, Queen Mary was alone in her private chambers, staring into her vanity mirror. Her makeup was flawless, her gown a breathtaking creation of Danish lace. And yet, her hands trembled. Minutes before she was to descend the grand staircase, a discreet palace aide knocked. King Frederik would be delayed, it seemed. Again, a last-minute, private matter. It was the straw that broke the queen's composure. Overcome by a wave of anguish, years of silent sacrifices, moments of loneliness, the relentless scrutiny, Mary sank to the floor. Tears spilled unchecked, sobs racking her slender frame. The diamond tiara slipped from her hair, clattering against the marble. This was the moment the queen broke down. Not in public, but in a way even more devastating. Alone, in a palace that suddenly felt like a cavern of echoing regrets. Word of the queen's collapse might never have emerged, if not for a trusted lady-in-waiting who later confided, anonymously, to a Danish journalist. She was like a dam that had finally burst, the aide shared. All these years, she had carried so much. Her worry for the king, for the children, for Denmark itself. In that moment, it was simply too much. The lady-in-waiting described helping Mary back to her feet, gently reapplying her makeup, whispering words of comfort. Within 15 minutes, the queen descended the staircase, regal as ever. The dinner guests never suspected a thing. But for Mary, the spell had cracked. King Frederik's absence that night was not born of indifference. In truth, he was wrestling with his own demons. Those close to the king spoke of mounting anxiety, of the weight of future kingship pressing down so heavily that he sometimes could scarcely breathe. Frederik had long admitted he never felt entirely ready to be king. His father, the late Prince Henrik, struggled in his role, often feeling sidelined by Queen Margrethe's powerful presence. Frederik carried those shadows, and so, on that very evening, he had stolen away to a quiet corner of Fredensborg's gardens, needing solitude before facing yet another glittering crowd. But it cost him dearly. It cost him seeing his wife's tears. In the days that followed, Queen Mary poured her heart into a handwritten letter. It was not addressed to diplomats or advisors. It was for Frederik alone. In page after page, she confessed her heartbreak, her fear that they were drifting into parallel lives. She wrote of nights lying awake, wondering if the palace walls were closing in on them. Wondering if he still needed her the way she needed him. Frederik's response was equally raw. Palace insiders say he was seen in his private study, head bowed over her letter, tears falling onto the royal stationery. That night, the king slipped into Mary's chambers, without ceremony, without pretense. They talked until dawn. Some accounts say they simply held each other, in a silence that healed more than words ever could. From that moment on, something shifted. The Danish press, ever discreet, noted that Mary and Frederik seemed more unified. They attended engagements hand in hand, exchanged tender glances that hadn't been seen in years. Even the palace courtiers, seasoned in royal dramas, breathed easier. The king and queen were finding their way back to each other. In the months that followed, Queen Mary was often overheard joking with Frederik in public. Their children seemed more at ease, too, playful during balcony appearances, whispering secrets to their parents. It was a reminder that even royals, cloaked in satin and diamonds, are human hearts beating under unbearable expectation. When snippets of this story leaked to the Danish tabloids, public reaction was overwhelmingly sympathetic. Danes admired their queen all the more for her vulnerability. Polls showed a surge in affection for the monarchy, as people realized how very real these pressures were. An elderly Copenhagen woman, interviewed on TV2, wiped tears from her eyes as she said, "She is our queen, but she is also a wife and a mother. I think we love her more because we know she has cried like we do." Royal watchers around the globe picked up the story, marveling at how even the most glamorous unions must weather storms. Marriage experts chimed in on morning talk shows, praising Mary and Frederik for confronting their pain rather than burying it. They showed that even in the highest towers, love must be nurtured, said one relationship counselor. It was, in a way, a masterclass in vulnerability. A testament that breaking down does not mean breaking apart, it sometimes means finding the strength to rebuild. Today, as Queen Mary stands by King Frederik's side, now as Denmark's reigning king and queen, there is a new depth in their bond. Those who see them up close say the laughter is real again. That Mary touches Frederik's arm not just out of protocol, but out of affection. That the glances they exchange carry volumes, of storms weathered, of tears shed, of promises renewed. Their children, growing rapidly into young adults, witness a love that was tested, and survived. So often we look to royalty for perfection, for fairy tales, but perhaps the true magic of Queen Mary's story is that it shattered the illusion. Her tears that night did not weaken the Danish monarchy, they humanized it. It is easy to admire a queen who never falters. It is far more profound to admire a queen who stumbles, weeps, and rises again, her crown slightly askew but her heart newly fortified. In that private moment of heartbreak, Mary unknowingly gave Denmark, and the world, a far greater gift than any state banquet or glittering ball, the reminder that love, no matter how royal, demands grace, forgiveness, and above all, resilience. And so, dear viewers, we turn to you. Have you ever faced a moment in your own relationships where everything seemed to fall apart, only to discover that it brought you closer in the end? Tell us your stories in the comments below. Because sometimes, it's in our deepest tears that we find our strongest bonds. Thanks for watching.